U.S. President Donald Trump has acknowledged having second thoughts about escalating a trade war with China, but the White House later reversed, saying the president was misinterpreted and that his only regret in hiking tariffs is that he didn't raise them higher. Mr. Trump faced a tense reception from his counterparts as they gathered in a French beach resort for the Group of Seven summit. He suggested during a breakfast meeting with British Prime Minister Boris Johnson that he harbored qualms about the spiraling conflict. U.S. President Donald Trump has acknowledged having second thoughts about escalating a trade war with China. Then hours later, White House Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham issued a statement saying the news media had greatly misinterpreted Mr. Trump's response. Ms. Grisham said the president only responded in the affirmative because he regrets not raising the tariffs higher. White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow offered a different explanation when interviewed Sunday by CBS Face the Nation, saying Mr. Trump didn't quite hear the question. Related articles: reporters asked Mr. Trump about regret 3 times in succession. Mr. Trump's admission appeared at first to mark a rare moment of self-reflection by the famously hard-nosed leader, and the later reversal fit a pattern of Mr. Trump recoiling from statements he believes suggest weakness. Asked if he had any second thoughts about escalating the U.S. trade war with China, Mr. Trump replied, "Yeah, sure. Why not?" When the reporter sought clarification by asking, "Second thoughts?" Mr. Trump said, might as well. Mr. Trump then said, "I have second thoughts about everything," when another reporter repeated the original question. White House officials said Mr. Trump planned to press leaders to do more to spur economic growth, as well as to open European, Japanese and Canadian markets to American manufacturers and producers. Mr. Trump had been trying to use the summit to rally the other leaders to do more to stimulate their economies, as fears rise of a potential slowdown in the U.S. before he stands for re-election in November 2020. His summit counterparts are trying to convince him to back off the trade conflicts with China and other countries, seeing the disputes as contributing to the overall economic weakening. The meetings come days after Mr. Trump responded to China's announcement Friday that it would slap new tariffs on $75 billion in American goods with more tariffs of his own. Mr. Trump also issued an extraordinary threat to declare a national emergency in an attempt to force U.S. businesses to cut ties with China. How Boris Johnson responded. Mr. Johnson, who praised Mr. Trump for America's economic performance, also chided the U.S. leader for his unbending China policy. "Just to register a faint sheep-like note of our view on the trade war," he told Mr. Trump, "we're in favor of trade peace." Mr. Trump said he had no plans right now to follow through on his emergency declaration threat, but insisted he would be within his rights to use a 1977 law designed to target rogue regimes, terrorists and drug traffickers as the newest weapon in the clash between the world's 2 largest economies. Mr. Johnson, who praised Mr. Trump for America's economic performance, also chided the U.S. leader for his unbending China policy. "If I want, I could declare a national emergency," Mr. Trump said. He cited China's theft of intellectual property and the large U.S. trade deficit with China, saying, "In many ways that's an emergency." What Trump is doing at the G7 summit. Mr. Trump then entered the first official summit meeting, initially set as a discussion of foreign policy and security issues. But White House aides claimed he engineered a late change to the summit schedule, adding economic issues to the agenda. White House officials said Mr. Trump planned to press leaders to do more to spur economic growth, as well as to open European, Japanese and Canadian markets to American manufacturers and producers. Mr. Trump has imposed or threatened to impose tariffs on all 3 markets in his pursuit of free, fair and reciprocal trade. The meeting of the Group of 7 nations, Britain, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan and the US, in the beach resort town of Biarritz comes at one of the most unpredictable moments in Trump's presidency, when his public comments and decision-making increasingly have seemed erratic and acerbic of late. Why Trump is already ruffling feathers. Only hours before his arrival in Biarritz Saturday, local time, Mr. Trump reissued his threat to place tariffs on French wine imports to the US in a spat over France's digital services tax. The European Union promised to retaliate. That was the backdrop for an impromptu two-hour lunch with French President Emmanuel Macron outside the opulent Hôtel du Palais. Mr. Trump on Sunday disputed reports of friction with other G7 leaders, saying he has been treated beautifully since he arrived. But cracks emerged moments later after the French government said the leaders had agreed at Saturday's dinner that Mr. Macron would deliver a message to Iran on behalf of the group. Mr. Trump disputed that he had signed off on any such message. "No, I haven't discussed that," he told reporters during a meeting with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. "No, I haven't." Copyright 9 Digital Pty Limited 2019. Let's block ads. Why?